This is Michael Mirdad here, and it's time for our Friday Night Spiritual Insights with Michael Mirdad. So thanks for joining our program. Today we're going to talk about something that's a little further out there than usual, and we do usually have quite a vast variety of topics. We're going to talk about walk-ins, the real story. Now, there are a lot of people that profess to know a lot about walk-ins or be experts on walk-ins and so forth. And my take would be, you can't really be that knowledgeable about walk-ins if you don't understand the psychology of the human being, the whole human soul, and so on. So you really have to understand the psyche. You can't just come from a new agey, woo-woo kind of a place and make it all just a little bit embellished and out there. Walk-ins are a spiritual, there's a component of spirituality to it, but there's definitely a component of psychology to it. So let me explain. So walk-ins are, as most people that do know about this, walk-ins are people that, well, let me say it another way first. The unfortunate thing is that almost anybody, just like people saying, I'm an indigo, and everybody else is a narcissist. It's like there's a lot of words that get used a bit flippantly. And the concept of walk-in is also a bit abused or overused. So it does exist, but it's fairly rare. Not extinct, but it's fairly rare in comparison to some modern issues. Like depression is far more common than, say, walk-ins. We don't have entire races of people coming in as walk-ins and so forth. It's a one-off here and there. Some people may agree with what I'm saying, some not, but let me just do my best to give an overview of this concept. So it's a person. A walk-in is a soul that for some reason has departed, like a near-death experience or death, but it's a soul that has departed from a body, and then a different soul steps in or walks in. But it's kind of like we should have made it popular by calling it step-ins, the soul, it's basically they've been replaced temporarily. Sometimes it's temporary, and sometimes permanently. And the new soul basically steps in. But when you have a walk-in scenario, there has to be a somewhat compatible vibe between the soul that's coming in and the soul that stepped out. Some level of compatibility has to be there. Not unlike when you do anatomical swaps, you do heart transplants, liver transplants and whatnot, kidney transplants. They look for somehow, compatibility. In the medical world, it would be like blood type compatibility. But in the world of psychology and spirituality, there has to be more than just blood type. There's got to be a much closer vibrational compatibility between the two people involved. So, and they do not have to know each other. There doesn't have to be any karmic connection. Oh, there could be. There could be a connection where someone says, you go in first, I'll take it after that. It could be twins that were going to be twins, actual twins, not twin souls, twins, at birth. One passes away, but the soul may say, you take the first half of the life or some portion, and I'll take the other. So that can happen. And I'll build on this concept so it's not too seemingly out there. But it is something that will, for all intents and purposes, be rare by comparison to normal day-to-day life experiences. But when a new soul comes in, there are going to be some challenges. First, let me try to set up the environment a little bit here for you. The soul, for almost always, when there's a walk-in, there has to have been some level of tragedy, drama, trauma, whether it's psychological drama, physiological, anatomical, accident, near-death experience. There has to be something fairly significant that happens. In one respect, you could say the body has to be under threat, like almost dead or a near-death experience or major trauma or drama. And this can even be like in a coma. And then you revive from a coma. That's one of the ways that it, and you know, how many people do you know that have come out of a coma? Let's say you know two, that would be a lot. that's what I'm saying about walk-ins. It's as rare as somebody coming out of a coma, because it's not that dissimilar. Somebody's gone and then they're revived. That's almost what it takes, because basically it's like saying that the body has been traumatized enough to where death could ensue, but yet not so damaged that another soul might not be able to step in and take over. I mean, if it's completely demolished in some way, then it's not going to be satisfactory for a soul to walk in. But in some way, the soul has to be, because sometimes we're, as you've heard doctors say, we've done all we can, now it's up to them. Sometimes it's not just the body. Sometimes the soul, or the willpower of the soul, is too tired to want to fight with that disease anymore, or to fight back that accident that happened. Sometimes they're like, look, I'm out of here, it's okay. But the body's actually still functional. They just haven't wanted to stay badly enough, which we should never shame anybody for doing and be mad at them for not staying. So keep that in mind. But, there's just enough of this and that setting, environment, circumstance. And so another soul says, hey, I have an idea. Body seems to be intact. There's a vibrational compatibility. I'll step in. When a soul does step in these kinds of occurrences, usually the soul is a bit more evolved than the one that was there. It's usually not a digression. You don't usually go from being a saint to complete, person that's just blown out, their morals and integrities. So usually it's a rise, and also because it takes a bit of a more evolved soul to be able to say, I'm willing to navigate this very strange occurrence, because when they come in, they're going to, first of all, have to, and this is a thing that is agreed upon by both souls involved. But a soul comes in and says, they have to be willing to take on a completely different identity momentarily, because when they come in, the vibration of that previous person is there. Cellular memory is still there. All that's there. And so if I'm a walk-in, it's going to be like, okay, take a deep breath. It's kind of like you're nice and warm out in the sun and jump into ice cold water. Like, boom, it's like, wow, a major, major blow to the self. And then they not only have to endure that shift, they have to go through, okay, well, now I'm going to also gradually pick up my memories again. So whatever my soul, the walk-in soul, whatever it is, whoever it is, wherever it's been, that's going to start downloading into the body of the person that you stepped into. So here you are, you're stepping in, and you've got to go, okay, I'm going to temporarily take on this identity to some degree. Even if you walk in going, something's happened, you might notice that. It's going to feel like a rude awakening to a major degree. But gradually you start integrating. Gradually you start kind of, I always think of it as sewing yourself or stitching yourself into that body. You kind of go in and, zip up the suit, and you go, wow, this is stranger than I thought. When it was a theory, it made like total sense and it seemed easy. Once I got in this body, this is quite a shock. So there is what I would call an adjustment period. And that's why, one of the reasons why it takes a little bit more of an advanced soul to be a walk-in. And it does happen that some not so evolved souls can walk in, but that's not as common. Often it's a more evolved soul. Please, again, don't assume that, one day I sneezed and I think it caused a walk-in. Don't overblow the whole thing. But do listen to this for your own education so that you know what they are. You can educate others. Do know about this also because it could be you. And do know this because you might walk into somebody, let me say that differently. You might bump into somebody, meet somebody that has these symptoms, and you might bring it up. Maybe you're a counselor, maybe you're just a friend, telling a friend. But you don't want to say, just because somebody says, God, I just don't feel like I belong in my family. Oh, you're probably a walk-in from, Arcturus star system or whatever. And yeah, the beings stepping in, walking in, can be either discarnate souls simply on the other side, waiting to incarnate if they want to incarnate, when they need to incarnate, or they could be beings from star systems. And that's why, in a way, when we talk about walk-ins, I get tempted to do a talk on walk-ins and starseeds, because starseeds are more like souls that are coming in really strongly with star system background. We all go through various star systems in between lives. We do. So that's why sometimes when people say starseeds, I'm one of those that came from another star system or planet or whatever, it's really kind of ignorant, even though I'm happy for them to be so excited about something. It's really an ignorance, once again, being perpetuated in the New Thought community, New Age community, because everybody technically is from the stars. But what it means, it's like another phrase people use. I'm a new soul. New to what? What that means? Well, I feel just really new to Earth, and so I think I was just created by God yesterday. Well, no. A new soul is really one that's new to Earth or newer to Earth. Not a lot of experience. And the term old soul doesn't mean necessarily that you're older than other souls. We were all created at the same time, truly, but we all come in phases, waves into the earth plane. So when we say old soul, what it really means is I have incarnated many times. It means old in experience. And then again, star seeds, we've all come from the stars. We all migrate and move around through the star systems in between lives and planets between lives. But a star seed would be more like the new soul concept, which is you're not the only one from the stars, but you're really identifying with it. You might have spent a lot of time in between lives in the stars, in other star systems or whatever. And you're, feeling a little bit less integrated in the Earth's vibration because you're used to other planetary systems or solar systems or whatever. So back to walk-ins. So the concept of walk-ins was popularized. You might have heard of Seth Speaks, the books Seth, or the Seth material. Popularized, I think, mostly in the 80s. It was popular and then phased out a little bit, but it was pretty popular in the 80s. It was replaced by more modern day channeling in the 90s. Modern day, not saying better, just more. The 90s became popular with people channeling let's call it light beings, higher dimensional beings. There's other people like Ruth Montgomery, even the Edgar Cayce kind of work. That kind of work that was in the 50s, 60s. Cayce was the 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, or 50s. Others were the 60s, 70s. All of those sort of faded a little bit, but they still deserve some kudos or credit for whatever work they did do. They're not necessarily my thing. Didn't become a major student of these materials because they were not as clear and as light, high vibration as I personally would prefer. But I think that a lot of people dug them and learned a lot from them. So it might be something you want to research. But Ruth Montgomery definitely, I think it was Aliens Among Us or something like that, popularized the notion, the concept of walk-ins. And she, even talked about case histories. She was saying Thomas Jefferson, she cites as being one case of a person who a soul came into and became the major teacher that he was, the major brilliant soul or whatever that he was. That's something that she cites. Whether that's accurate or not, I'm just sharing that that's an example of something she brought up. I do know that I know for me, I know there are lifetimes of mine where I very, very distinctly know I chose not to enter that person that's known as whatever, Joe Blow. I chose not to enter that person until a certain phase in their life. Now, I can tell you that I have a vivid memory of that, and you might have vivid memories of your own. I think it's great. It doesn't prove anything to others. It's just that I know or you know that that's something that felt right for you. But that's another reason why I'm aware that a walk-in can step in after a drama or trauma and also after a period of that person's life is over. For example, it's kind of interesting because walk-ins are more common, let's say, when a person's not a child. It can happen, but it's a little more common later, in my opinion. And one reason is there's a lot of childhood stuff that goes on, and for some children, it's a burning off of old stuff so they can be done with it and be done with maybe incarnating. So they go through a really tumultuous childhood, then they're done and they can check out. But the body seems fine. Mind if I use it? And somebody else steps in. But the new person stepping in can be a more evolved soul that says, I just need the body. I'm not attached to the family. I'm not attached to the past of the child. I'm just going to launch the child into a human adult body and use it for what I would, my own use. But I don't need to do elementary school again. I don't need to go through puberty again. I don't need to be 3 again. I don't need to be breastfed again. I'm good. So they're ready to roll. And that's one of the common reasons for walk-ins that are the ones that are more evolved. It's sort of a way of beaming in and not having to play the human game too much because they don't need to because they're more evolved. So I'll share in a moment some symptoms of what this looks like, but a couple of quick movies. I'm sure you guys can think of far more than I would, but movies that sort of address the walk-in concept. One of them, you may have heard of K-Pax. K-Pax, if you didn't see it, it's interesting. Has just a couple of dark moments, scenes, because he's remembering a past of who he was before, and when he left the body and then became a walk-in. But K-Pax is quite cool, quite interesting. I think a lot of people, just about anybody would gain from watching it. Another one, that's from like the 90s. Another one, Heaven Can Wait, from the 70s. Warren Beatty. It's a sort of a comedy, but it's really cool because it's explaining, okay, here's this guy, and he's the movie starts with him, an athlete, quarterback for a team, football, an NFL team, and he's riding his bike and he's in a tunnel, and then a car comes from the other direction and hits him and kills him. But he technically shouldn't have died. And this is where they're making it more of a funny, cute thing. One of the angels, his guardians, thought, well, he's going to die. Clearly, this accident's going to kill him, so let's take him out so he doesn't feel any pain. Well, he pulls him out, but he wasn't going to die. So he's on the other side, and his teachers, his guide, or God, is saying, the master's on the other side, they're going, well, wait, what do you mean you pulled him out of his body? He wasn't going to die. And it's like, oh, dear. So what are we going to do? Because that soul that's out of the body is on the other side protesting. Why am I here? I'm supposed to be in the Super Bowl. How did I die? And they're like, oh, a little oversight. And so he says, I insist then on you finding me another body. But I want a body that I can whip into shape to get to the Super Bowl. What are the odds? Just taking an average guy. And so they put him in the body of a millionaire whose wife and lover are trying to kill and get rid of. So they're trying to knock him off every day, and in the meantime, now this guy is seeing what they're trying to do, and so all this, the intrigue, it's all comedy, but the intrigue is are they going to get caught trying to kill this guy, and is he going to get to the Super Bowl again and all that? So it's interesting, a different way of presenting the concept, but it's kind of funny, kind of interesting. And there's probably other movies too that you have seen, or other people will post some ideas, and then you can check it out if this continues to feel resonant with you. Now somebody can say, well, but what if I'm not at all like a walk-in? Then why would I be interested in this topic? Again, as a teacher, meaning not necessarily a spiritual teacher out in the world, but as any form of a teacher, as a counselor. You can be an anesthetician, you can be a beautician, you can be a whatever, counselor. And knowing these things can give you a little bit of a answer to people that are struggling, if this fits for them. It also helps because it could be you, and like I said, it also helps in case a loved one is going through this, and then you might have some feedback to give them. It also is helpful because it is similar to other experiences. For example, you might have met somebody that had a near-death experience, and this is not dissimilar to that. The difference is, in a near-death experience, you go to the other side, and you might come back remembering that you met with other beings, souls that have passed on. In a walk-in, you leave and you do go to the other side and see souls that have passed on. The difference is a soul on the other side takes over and you stay there. That's it. It's like a running track and it's all you, and the other one, it's you pass the baton to the next person and they take it from there. To some people, it's like, well, wait, isn't that an invasion of your will? No, it isn't, because the souls have already agreed. They've agreed to do this. Sometimes this decision is made then. Yes, I'm willing to do this. And sometimes it's made before you even incarnate. Like before you're even born, it's already known. You're going to check out at this time and somebody else take over the body, no problem. And so it gets kind of interesting, really. Some people think it sounds very similar to demonic possession. And real fundamentalists would throw it into that category very quickly, very easily, prematurely though, because it's very different in two distinct ways. It doesn't involve a demon. It's not a demon stepping in. It's another soul, evolving soul. And there are such things as demons and angels and other beings, but it's not. It's a soul. And secondly, it's not without your consent. In possession, you tend to feel like something took you over. They are oppressing you or possessing you. But this isn't the case. This is you're gone, someone else steps in. By the way, some people ask, so if you pass to the other side, what do you do? Well, you go through your normal process on the other side, generally. In some cases, for various reasons, the soul that passes over, another soul steps in. Well, the one that passed over often will kind of hang around near the entity, the body, until the time it actually passes over, dies. And then it sort of is free to move on and go on its way. So sometimes we stay near our original host, like almost like a spaceship, and you're doing a spacewalk out there, Sometimes you stay close to the ship. Other times you're gone. You don't need to. You're totally gone. You take off. You do your processing. You do your evolution on the other side. And the body's simply used as a shell by someone else. And we know that in nature, it's true that different kinds of creatures do take over each other's houses, homes, even their physical shells. So it's very much like that, I guess you could say. Let's see. Also, I want to share, I'm going to share 7 maybe symptoms. But by symptoms, again, I want you to be very responsible and very careful not to say, oh my gosh, this is, one of them is true, so therefore this applies. I'm going to say to you, if you don't have the majority of these, then I wouldn't assume anything. I wouldn't assume you're a walk-in, or if you have somebody else you're thinking about. 1 or 2 things doesn't for a walk-in make. You really, to me, I would want to see corroborating evidence consistently and say, yeah, this is really sounding more and more authentic. Just like with past lives, if somebody says, I have brown eyes, I have blue eyes, and a historic character had the same color, it must be me. You wouldn't want to make such a silly assumption. And by the same token, I would really highly recommend allowing this to steep, allow it to evolve, and really see if, as they say, if the shoe fits, wear it. Well, in this case, if the walk-in fits, if the body fits, then wear it. There's a certain amount of importance to this piece. The piece which is there's an accident or a major trauma, and the soul is almost on one level shocked into dying, and they go into, let's say, a coma. So they're kind of done. The body has life support systems, so it's being maintained, and then the person comes out of the coma. Well, this is where it gets interesting, because that's when you can start exhibiting symptoms. And by the way, even with organ transplants, We know this is a very common occurrence now. Medical science is seeing this, and they don't know why it's happening, but I do, you maybe do. Somebody gets an organ donated to them, and whatever it is, liver, heart, whatever it is, they get an organ, and one day they'll be able to transplant whatever organs, but you can take eyes and all kinds of things can be transplanted. That's fine. It gives somebody else a better quality of life, I guess. But when it happens, just an organ transplanted can cause the person who received the organ to take on characteristics of the person who donated the organ. So the let's say a kidney donor was a smoker and a meat eater. The person that received wasn't. And then the person receives and starts saying, I'm craving cigarettes. And so that's why it started going into the realm of a lot of curious family members wondering, our family member doesn't smoke, and what's with this drinking? They didn't drink beer or whatever. So the psychologists then are looking at this, tracking, people that have gone through this and trying to look for any changes, any stressors from such procedures. And they started recognizing common denominators and going, wow, so they don't understand why. And then, of course, they're going to guess in their form of guessing, but there's a vibration, there's cellular memory in those organs. Well, it's the same as the spiritual cellular memory of a soul that does a walk-in. They walk in and they're blasted with this major cellular memory of the former person. So they're going to slightly take that on, but at some point, they're going to also start integrating and changing by bringing their own vibration, just like if they were an organ that was donated. And I have to say, this is all pretty confusing to family members. I mean, you're in a partnership with someone who's gay, and all of a sudden near-death experience, now they're straight, or vice versa. They're a Republican, they're a Democrat, or vice versa. The person's a mechanic, car mechanic, and they come back and they could be a brain surgeon. They know everything about it. It is pretty amazing, but it is valid. This does happen, but it isn't always walk-ins. It can be organ donator, but even besides that, so strap in your seat here and bear with me. It can even be past life memories coming through. I call it bleeding through for various reasons, but it's past life memories can come shining through, bleeding through into the life of a person, because the whole past life, boom, this accident happened, then your near-death experience, and when you have that, sometimes you're seeing other lifetimes you've had, because you're sort of having in a way, your life flashing before your eyes. In a way, you're having an epiphany of who you've been, and in this life and others. And so, yeah, sometimes you come back with those skills, sort of awakened in you. It isn't always walk-in. So be patient, and I'll share maybe, like I said, I'll share 7 or so symptoms. So it's likely that if you think you're a walk-in or if somebody's a walk-in, you almost have to look for that. Has there been a coma-like experience? Has there been like an operation that somebody went through where they were out, anesthesia, out, or in a coma, something really, really definite like that, where they were gone, some form of sent out of their body, surgically or traumatically or whatever it might be. Another symptom, I would say, is there would have to be possibly or probably memory lapses or losses. In other words, my body was filled with someone else. Now they're gone. I step in. I don't have their memories. I might at first, but I might not. They might fade, or I might have them and then they fade, or I might not have them and then I have to recall them and really bring them up. But major lapses in memory. Why? Because it wasn't me. I might access some of the cell memory of that body I'm using, but if I can't identify with it at all, I might not be able to bring that through. So it gets kind of interesting if you think about it, And then I would say coming out of a major transition, if you've come out of a coma, car accident, something very scary, even an attempted suicide, but it can even be a nervous breakdown. It's not just near death. It can be even a nervous breakdown. And then coming out of that, but feeling like a completely different person. Now, completely different person on the inside, or the next item on our list, a completely different person on the outside. Now, the inside, I can feel completely different. I can say, well, God, I feel totally different. My thoughts are different. My thought processes are different. Feelings, my internal feelings are different. Different beliefs. And usually, I can save that for another one of our bullet points, but there's just an internal difference. My belief systems are different. And even my feelings towards my partner could be higher, could be lower, lesser. But it could be very much towards family. It could be like, who are you people? Like, I really don't know you. You're not my thing. It can be very hard. Now, if it's a very abusive family, then it's all the more easy. It's kind of nice to be done with that. But if you had a family that was really a nice family and they were very loving towards the person that left, God, they're grieving twice. They lost that person, and now the one that's come back, they have to adapt. You're not the person we remember. It's almost like you have had amnesia, and they have to kind of love the half of you that's still there. So it can be really awkward, to say the least. And then that's the internal changes, but external changes, oh my God, numerous. I think we're on number 4 now. External changes, diet, your hobbies, your talents. These are external related things. Your outer personality could be going from outgoing, external type of person to a very internalized person, extrovert to an introvert, or the other way around. So personality can change. Your interests, what you're interested in. Again, hobbies, all these things, external things, would likely be significantly different. Then you've got feeling disconnected. Boy, that can take all kinds of, feeling disconnected from family members, from friends. You could call it feeling like you don't belong, but feeling disconnected. And when you're going through that, remember, sometimes we're going through a phase of depression. Sometimes we're going through a phase of existential soul searching. Who am I? What is life about? It doesn't mean all of those are walk-ins, but a walk-in is coming in going near-death experience, coming out of that going, wow, what the heck happened? I don't even remember who you are. Memory losses. That's different from disconnected, but I'm talking about actual no memories. The other one's like a feeling of not feeling connected. The other one, connected to what? I don't even have any memories of what to connect to. And then, coming out of these transitions with like I said, a major or significant amount of external changes, internal changes. Another point, you basically, these kind of overlap, but you feel like you're a different person. And you are, obviously, but you notice it. I think it's important for people to understand you're going to feel like, who am I? Where do I fit in? You're going to sit back and go, God, people are telling me I used to do this and I don't relate to it. So am I going crazy? It's almost like some sci-fi movie, but it isn't, but it's going to feel like a sci-fi movie. Like this isn't just made up. This is, for all intents and purposes, you are a different soul. But it's not so simple as a different soul that came into a new body. This is someone else's body. They have a history. So it's like all the awkwardness of a male or female stepping into a family that already exists because the previous partners died or moved on and left. You're stepping into a partnership and they already have kids. Oh, okay, I got to just kind of adapt. And so do they. So that's kind of like a walk-in, a metaphor of a walk-in. Being a stranger in the household. and not knowing your place. That's very much how it feels to be a walk-in, and certainly challenging. In some respects, if the person does their job, does their work, they're going to integrate into the new body, basically shower it, fix it up, prepare it, because it's going to go into a new life. It's going to go into, more often than not, a better life. Sometimes they digress, but the digressions are usually more with anatomical donors switching organs than an actual soul walking in, because of what it takes, maturity-wise, spiritually, what it takes to come in and know you're going to walk into this blast of former life, try to deal with that, and then start integrating. By the way, what am I here for again? Oh, that's right, because you came in with a little bit more of a mission. You're on a mission because that's why you're like, I don't need the childhood. I already have something to do. So that's pretty cool if you think about it. And then there's going to be, last but not least, almost always a heightened interest in spirituality. Because the soul's higher, there's almost always a heightened sense. It's kind of interesting because that, again, confuses families. But you come in and you go, okay, I used to be just a mom. I used to be kind of just a job person that go to work and do whatever. Just a family person, whatever, And now all of a sudden I'm into yoga. Like almost like I can't get enough of it. Like I'm devouring, yoga and fitness. And what happened? Well, after a near-death experience, somebody's going to say, oh, well, this is just them compensating because they had a near-death experience. That's what the heads are going to say. But our soul is saying, no, it's way more than that. I'm a different person. I'm coming in a more evolved person, and just using the body that was there. And even though I've already said this a couple of times, I'll say again, it's not like everything's a walk-in. Sometimes if I just have a near-death experience, many people, they call them NDEs, near-death experiences. When people have an NDE, sometimes that just wakes them up, slap in the face, like, I'm going to go back to earth and change my life. So don't assume that one symptom, a coma, a near-death experience or whatever, makes for an NDE, or I'm sorry, makes for a walk-in. It's going to take one and then another and another symptom to be satisfied, so to speak, to really confirm that might be what's going on. I would just say, if I'm thinking about like the most common things and it's important to really get the psychology of it all. When I've met people that come to me for counseling session, and I can tell they're walk-ins, but I don't know that in all my years of counseling, I don't know, I must have seen, it's in the tens of thousands of people by now, I'm sure. Not once do I remember saying to somebody, you're a walk-in. Not once that I recall. And if I did, it has to be very rare. I mean, like I would be able to count them on one hand easily in tens of thousands. So why don't I say it more? Because it's really kind of fancy, if you tell people you're a walk-in, it excites people. And my friend, hey, listen, that go to Michael Mirdad, he told me I'm a walk-in. Oh, I wonder if I'm a walk-in. It really stirs a clientele. I'm not interested in that. Changing, healing, greater level of accomplishment is what I'm doing when I'm working with people. So I'm not there to tell you you're a walk-in. If you are, or even if you're not, my job is to say, how do we improve your life? And I don't usually even tell people about past lives unless it's important. In other words, I don't just sit down and go, oh, you were Napoleon. To me, it's all what needs to be covered right now. And maybe when I say I don't often do past lives, doesn't mean I don't do them at all. Walk-ins I've never done, but past lives, past lives because I would say 1 in 10 readings maybe, because I do healing, counseling, readings, different things. But 1 in 10 readings, I probably, it comes up where I'll do like past life related things, but I only do it when it's relevant. I don't just say, well, this will excite them and make them get me more, their friends coming for readings. It's only if it's relevant, it'll come to me. Just like if you have childhood abuse, I don't bring it up unless it's relevant. That doesn't mean I'm holding back information as much as it might sound. I go for it, guys. I'll tell you everything that I need to tell you in the hour or 45 minutes that we're in a session. So I'm going to do what's necessary, and people will testify to that. There must be hundreds of testimonials on our website to read. But so it's not like I'm remiss in giving you feedback, but I definitely want to give you feedback that is relevant and that is about you moving forward. So I don't want to say, guess what? You're a walk-in if you're going to go and go into the pits over it. If I say to you, you struggle with depression, I'm not going to say, and thank you for being here, bye-bye, and leave you stuck in the depression. I want to go somewhere with that. I want to work on that. So if I were even thinking a walk-in, I'm still going to want to do something with that. Now, people have come and said they were walk-ins, and I'll validate it, but I don't necessarily bring it up unless I know that it's really crucial. And I definitely won't bring it up, any topics, if I think you're going to use it to hurt yourself. Meaning even not just physically, but egotistically. If I thought you were Napoleon or Joan of Arc or whatever, I might not necessarily tell you that, because I don't want to inflate your ego. I don't want to tempt you to go, oh, there we go, or you were a king or queen and you were wealthy. Well, see that? Now I shouldn't even have to work. I'm not going to want to be the one to tempt you, to go down that rabbit hole. I'd rather just, and how do we take you to the highest level of consciousness now? Okay? So I pray in advance that this is making sense to you folks, that it's not too woo-woo. And I love the idea of planting a seed that says there's psychology, spirituality. This is one of those topics that kind of meets in both of those. It's just like talking about a person with multiple personality disorder. It's a valid thing. So is walk-in. Why isn't walk-in being like a double personality? One that was former, one that's now. Multiple personalities, it's the two of them at the same time, two or more of them at the same time. But one of them's too spiritual for the world of psychology to accept it. But even your multiple personalities, sometimes it is just a splitting off. They call it your soul sort of refracting into different personalities because of traumas, etc. So they're varying coping personalities. But no, guys, sometimes they're past lives that have come through. Sometimes they are like schizophrenic things where your neurons in your brain are short-circuiting and they're making you see and feel other people that were once maybe a TV show character or that you saw when you were little, and it's still in your brain. So there's different levels of reasoning behind how we have multiple personality disorder. And all I'm saying here by this right now is that there's a normalcy to all this, and people need to accept that it's okay. Someone has schizophrenia. It's one of the things we have. It's just one of. And it's valid, and yet it's not valid in some regards. Some of the studies they do are not valid at all, and some are actually valid. The workings of. There's bipolar disorder. There's, people that are narcissists, people that have, they can't call it past life disorder because that's past life. Science won't accept that, but heck with them. We can know that. I'm having a bit of a past life disorder, meaning I'm having really haunting things from past lives that are, just having a grip on me, not letting me be who I really want to be. Great, let's call it past life disorder, But there's also multiple personality disorder and so many other things, and we have to allow all these things to have space to be talked about, to be discussed. If you disallow one or more of them, then you're going to end up having to pigeonhole a person into possibly the wrong diagnosis or the wrong assumptions, medications even. I'm not telling you that they're going to medicate for past life, my joking past life disorder. I'm just saying that if they only allow certain titles, it doesn't allow for the others, which means they have to stuff the others into that little category that they made of what's allowable. And I'm not by any means saying that we're supposed to pigeonhole everybody. I'm saying it helps us to understand. To me, any one of these labels is where I start, and then I launch forward. I don't go there put a box around me and descend into it for eternity. None of them. Even the ones they say are incurable, I don't accept it. I refuse to accept that you drop me in and I'm stuck in that box forever. What I do is I start where I guess this is past life. I guess this is walk-in. Whatever I'm feeling most affinity to, and then I go from there, and how do I improve my life starting here and now? That's my feedback on that, okay? But I hope that this somehow gives you something to chew on, something to connect with. And it might very well be that this is something you feel an affinity to, but a lot of you have asked me to talk about it, so I did. Also, I know there are support groups, whether it's multiple personality disorder or, near-death experiences. There's all kinds of support groups, 12-step groups in some cases, but there's support groups. If this applies to you, by all means, you could reach out and just say, guys, there are support groups for parents with children with bipolar disorder. And it's so cool to go, God, somebody I can talk to that can relate. Hey, is anybody else out there that's frustrated with feeling X, Y, and Z? Oh, God, yeah, that's so normal. Really? Oh, my God, I thought I was going crazy. I just love it. I love when people find answers and when they find things that bring them, I guess you could say, a sense of peace. That's called a miracle. When you can shift craziness and hurt and fear and disorientation to something more clear and grounded, that's a definition of a miracle. So I pray that you have yours. Last but not least, we just have so many cool things coming up. So keep posted as best you can. You can ask to receive notices. There's a little special way you do that on YouTube. Notices to keep track of when I've done another talk or when there's an event coming up. So try to keep posted. I really, really suggest more of you go to my website, michaelmirdad.com, and sign up for our mailing list. All you do is type in your name and address or whatever, your name and email. But it's really, really wise because, guys, the time will come when these social media companies are going to shut people down that they don't want teaching certain things, and it already has happened. So I just bid you to be independent as best you can. Get on our mailing list, and then you and I, we control whether you're in touch with what I'm doing instead of relying on a company that's got our lives, in their hands. It's so strange that people are living like that, but it's scary that it fell into anybody having absolute power like that. It's so strange, So I really suggest you guys go to my website, get in on my and on my website, by the way, there's lots of free downloads. So enjoy. There's books and things you can order, but also lots of free downloads, lots of free lectures and things like that you can tap into as well. On YouTube, tons and tons, so check them out. So I pray this has made good sense and that you join us. Thank you for letting me share the extra feedback here and PR, as it were. But God bless you all, and thank you for everything, your support, your interest. Keep on growing, keep on expanding consciousness, and remember, the most important thing, God first in all things. God first. So nurture your relationship with God by giving God a little time every morning and night. Peace be with all of you. Bye-bye.